Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the latest episode of Take 20, created by the PDMI's Brand Response Council. These 20-minute live conversations featuring leaders in the performance marketing world speaking about the hottest topics in the industry are scheduled twice monthly. Check out thepdmi.com/take-20 for the upcoming schedule. Before we get to today's conversation, a quick housekeeping note. The group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session. You don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send in your question. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of this episode. So let's get to it. Today's topic is the trajectory of e-commerce. I'd like to welcome our host, Chris Foster, Vice President of New Business at Modern Postcard, a national direct marketing company that services businesses of all sizes and all markets. Chris is the chair of the Brand Response Council. His guest today is Phil Gorman, the founder and CEO of e-commerce events, which just hosted a major virtual event, e-commerce day, last Thursday. Thank you all for joining us. Chris, take it away.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Thomas, and welcome, Phil. I'm so glad you're here. As we noted, Phil's the CEO of e-commerce day. This was a fantastic virtual event, happened last week. Almost 2,000 registered folks coming in from all walks of life in the e-commerce world. The e-commerce ecosystem is massive. Not only do you have the direct response brands, clearly, small businesses, mid-market companies, but you also have the ancillary services, service companies that support those folks. And this e-commerce day was sponsored by the likes of Google and Shopify, Facebook. I think you might have heard of some of those brands, but they were major sponsors of the program because they know that e-commerce is starting to become one of the major movements in the retail space and is becoming a lifeblood of the American economy. So we're excited to talk about the findings from e-commerce day. And Phil, I know that we've talked a lot about some of this stuff, but you know, it's one thing to have books written by prognosticators and think tanks and what's going to happen, but it's quite another to hear a story about e-commerce's next landscape changes by the ones who are actually doing the selling online, the ones who are working every single day, and the ones who support those businesses. We'd like to kind of break down what happened at e-commerce day, talk about the surprises, some of the insights, and the key takeaways. You had someone like Rebecca Minkoff, who has built a fantastic e-commerce empire. She was the keynote speaker. You had Dylan Whitman, who had created a Shopify agency, sold that. You had participants, like I said, from Shopify and Google and Facebook. It was completely packed. So there's a lot to talk about. We only have about 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm going to just have a couple of questions and then we can riff off. So my first question to you, Phil, is what was one new idea to come out of e-commerce day that really surprised you?
You know, that's a great question, Chris, and just really quick, thanks for having me today and all the kind words. But yeah, we had an interesting guest and somebody I found on a I'm just a big fan of e-commerce, so I'm patrolling all the various chat rooms and conversations that are going on the different channels, whether it's LinkedIn or even some of the obscure places. And I found a company called Jika, and Keenan Davison is the founder of it.
Can you spell that for us?
Jika.
Okay.
And it's a Shopify plugin that allows for A/B price testing for products.
Wow.
So, a few years ago, there was a lot of talk about dynamic pricing, right? We're all familiar with that with airlines, right? If I don't jump on it today, the price is going to be higher tomorrow. Amazon had talked about making their grocery stores, including Whole Foods, having dynamic pricing based on the number of products that are left on the shelf, right? It's going to get more expensive as the shelf gets cleaned off. And that never really took hold, surprisingly enough. And so this is a little bit different, the A/B price testing. So if you have something that you think, right, we all think we have the best ideas and we know what our customers want. But when it comes to pricing, there's a lot of gray area, and Keenan has really built a pretty magnificent tool that can help even incrementally a small e-commerce store become more profitable.
That is a wonderful find, Phil. And here's what I love about Jika. It's a Shopify plugin, meaning that if I have a Shopify site, it's a super easy installation. So I don't have to be a technical or, web development guru to install it. Because if I'm a small business owner and I'm a small business e-commerce owner, I'm working 10, 12 hours a day, and suddenly it's 10:30 at night, and I'm like, oh, I've got to do web development. But they can make it easy. But secondly, this is so emblematic of the e-commerce space. You can't do A/B price testing on a shop floor inside a store.
On the fly, fluid, you can gather your data and take action. And frankly, Chris, that's why I'm focused on the e-commerce industry today. I've done a lot of things in my professional life and background, and even had done business 30 years ago with your company and in another life. But I am in e-commerce because of the daily changes and the ability, not only from a service provider view, but for a merchant. Man, how exciting. The business is different every day. And this year is a bit of an anomaly, right, in terms of excitement. Not all e-commerce companies have benefited from the events of the past 6-8 months, but many have. Sure. And many are off the charts, and many we even see on the stock market have benefited greatly. So it's that ever-changing atmosphere that keeps me getting up every day and wanting to see what's next.
Well, so what's interesting about the e-commerce space is it's really blending two major trends, advances in technology and advances, actually more than two major trends, advances in technology, advances in marketing understanding, advances in data and consumer behavior understanding, right? Those things can blend actually, and even right now on this screen, we have an A/B split test. You and I can go to a site with Jika installed. I'm gonna get one price, you're gonna get a different price. We have no idea that we're paying different prices. Jika knows, and Jika can follow not only our behavior, whether or not we abandon the cart or buy. They can take, it's a new technology installation, but B, they can take the data to make more informed pricing decisions moving forward. So a small business or e-commerce company doesn't have to have an army of data analysts, and it democratizes some of the interesting learnings that big brands have.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's that even playing field. A lot of folks are daunted by this overwhelming idea of starting a new business. And they sometimes just can't get out of the gate because it is an overwhelming idea, like thinking that, oh, Best Buy is going to crush me, right? If I try and sell electronics. But the reality is you can deploy almost every tool that Best Buy deploys to gain new customers, to sell new product, to price test. There's just so, fulfillment and other services, advertising. You can mimic the big guys. So you're right, the word democratization, it's an even playing field, and it's not limited by wallets. I mean, truly, yes, Shopify and some of the other platforms will tell you it's $29 you can be in business tomorrow. The reality is, maybe it's $150 you can have a mock store.
That's
still not a lot. Yeah, still not a lot. And you can deploy those tools like a Jika and some of the others. There's lots of free tools or even tools that are priced where you don't start paying until you hit a certain volume. Oh, wow. The nice thing about and one of the reasons why we actually produce the events that we do is that almost everybody in the industry is willing to help a merchant do more, do better, sell more, be more profitable, add more products, find new audiences, talk to your customers, nurture your customers, create a living, all those things. Everybody, I mean almost everybody I've ever encountered in the industry over the last several years has that mindset. They want to help them.
I love that idea, Phil, because we talk about an ecosystem in the e-commerce ecosystem, but as we all know from our biology 101 classes in high school and in college, ecosystems are completely interdependent, right? You have to have the right flowers and grasses. You have the herbivores, you have the predators. The ecosystem of a bayou has everything from small tadpoles up to, alligators. And so it's a whole thing that feeds on itself, and you want a healthy ecosystem to help each other out. So, with that in mind, with the ecosystem of e-commerce, with all the tools that you've talked about, some free, some small paid, and all the learnings that they can get and all the free learnings that they can get, it can be probably overwhelming for a new brand to start out to pick and choose. So if I would ask, if you had 3 pieces of kind of tactics and or technology that you would say these are must have to get started as foundational pieces, what would they be?
Really great question. I would start with, besides having just a good foundation of a website, that's why I'm partnered with Shopify. They, there's some others out there, Wix and Squarespace, have a great tool and foundation. So you got to start with that. And most of those are pretty bulletproof today, right? You can't have a product like that if it's got some weaknesses or shuts down, breaks down.
Right.
So starting with a great foundation of picking the right provider. Number 2, I would say email capture. I conduct a lot of live webinars with folks that are looking to get into e-commerce, or they've already started and they're trying to get to the next level. And every single time, without doubt, the power of email marketing and the ability to capture emails is always underestimated by the audience, always.
Okay.
And they just don't understand the power of owning your customer's email address. Not that you're going to spam them like the old days. Nobody really does that so much anymore, right? E-commerce companies have learned how to be considerate, how to serve up emails and present products, ideas, solutions to the customer base that make sense. And frankly, it's the best bang for the buck based on well-known data that's been collected across all kinds of categories, product categories, and national, locations. That one of the highest performing advertising tool you have is email marketing, so conversion rates. And then I would say
I'll ask you real quick, if I could just stop you before number 3. You gave us Wix, Squarespace, and Shopify as e-commerce foundations. What are your top 3 go-tos for email providers?
There are a lot of good ones. Omnisend is one that's focused on e-commerce companies. So is Klaviyo. Klaviyo is an interesting spelling. It's Klaviyo, I think it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me.
That's fine.
But those 2 are focused on helping e-commerce merchants. Those are tied into their stores, and they help them convert additional sales, whether that's abandoned cart or post-sale follow-up or add-ons, things like that. So those 2 are good. MailChimp and Shopify had a divorce last year. They had a falling out. The functionality is still there. There's just a plugin that sits in between MailChimp and Shopify today. It still works. I use it in a particular case. But those 3 are the standbys, and they work, and they're good, and they're inexpensive.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. So we have a great website foundation, email provider, and what's your number 3 must-have?
A lot of people think, oh, I need to be on Facebook, right? I need Facebook or Google advertising. For me, table stakes is retargeting. And I'm not just saying this, because I know that, Chris, that's your mainstay right now, modern.io.
Right.
Modern.io is a retargeting solution, which of course I'm a fan of. But retargeting in general, whether it's digital or print postcards, is a must-have. So what I like to tell people in my workshops, if you own a coffee shop or you're selling your items in a retail store on Main Street in your town, and somebody walks into the store and walks out, right? We've all done it. Nothing's more frustrating than the clerk in the store, right? They came and then left, and then they're gone.
Right.
Retargeting enables you to at least grab a piece of that person and continue talking to them, even though they've gone on their way or down the street.
Sure.
And again, done
they expressed an interest.
Yeah, and done appropriately, it can be well received. SMS, it would be, I would say, if I could have a 2-part answer for number 3.
Yes.
SMS messaging has come about pretty strong in the last year, and again, done properly, that can be integrated into a communication strategy and convert into additional incremental sales.
Fantastic. I love it. That was a wonderful breakdown. great foundation of a website, strong email provider, and retargeting plus/SMS as part of that. That's great.
Right.
We are actually getting close to rounding it out for the last question, and then some questions from our audience. So Phil, I have a question. Hi, I'm an e-commerce company. I've got $25,000 in budget that I've squirreled away from my penny, from my jar. What should I spend it on?
Well, congratulations on the savings, number one.
Thank you.
And being prepared to spend it. But really, it isn't necessarily about the amount of money. I've already touched on the importance of gathering email. So really creating relationships that enable you to grow the audience that you can own. So an email address and somebody's contact information, you as a business own that, right? Versus a relationship through Amazon. If you place your products on Amazon and get orders, you don't own that customer. That's Amazon's customer. But if you have a direct relationship with a buyer and they give you their email address to talk to them, you own them and you can talk to them forever. And using those tools that we just talked about, it's really relatively inexpensive to stay in touch with them and keep the communication going. So contests, partnerships, giveaways, things like that to grow that email list don't cost a lot of money. While you can certainly spend that on ads to grow the list, we've all seen the offers for things. Hey, give us your email and we'll give you X. Maybe it's a free download, a free, your name is entered into a drawing, or whatever the case may be. Things like that, and expanding your reach through partnerships. Maybe there's somebody else in your space that you can talk to that has a much larger audience than you do, and may be willing to partner and share their audience and share your product with their audience. Things like that is really what I would focus on, because they are more organic, and you're going to get, the things that come from those types of efforts are more honest and genuine. And just to back up to some of the basics, a couple of years ago, yes, if I had a widget that targeted a certain market, I could go on Facebook and advertise my widget and target that certain market and probably sell some stuff. It's not that linear anymore.
Right.
Customers need to be talked to, cajoled. You have to take them on a journey, take them by the hand, tell them a story, tell them why, what's the value proposition of doing business with your company. And if you're mission driven, even better, you have even a bigger story to tell. Whatever the case may be, it's a process, right? Because we already know that on average, only 2% of e-commerce website visitors close the deal. So the other 98%, they got to your site for some reason, somehow, some way. So now we're back to the retargeting conversation, right? So keep talking to people that have already come to you and expressed interest.
And express an interest.
Where I would spend my $25K.
I love that. That is such a simple message to our audience. Grow an audience that you can own, right? That's where the dollars are. Wonderful. That's fantastic advice, Phil. I really appreciate that. Okay, Thomas, I'm going to ask if we've got some questions from the audience. I'm going to open it up to see if there's some chat coming through, and because we call it a take 20. Usually it's a take 25, but that's okay. It's good because
we're up against it. Yeah, we have a couple here. We have a couple here. So first one that came through: when considering retargeting, what media mix do you think works best?
Chris, do you want to handle that, or you want me to answer?
You know what? I think that we probably will come up with the same answer. It's a great question. We would recommend both a digital and a physical postcard retargeting. We've launched the Modern IO postcard retargeting to enormous success to the e-commerce industry, but it doesn't mean that you should not do the digital. Digital is critical because you follow those folks around where they are, and they're on their phones, right? We know that. So Facebook retargeting has been proven to be really effective. Digital retargeting via ad roll or double click or some other digital display ads, that's terrific. And I think to Phil's point earlier, the one thing about retargeting that's so strong is that you're already reaching someone who you know is interested. So normal display advertising click-through rates is about 0.07%, right? It's not very much. It's 7 out of 10,000. Digital retargeting is about 7 out of 1,000, right? So that's still pretty good. A 0.7% click-through rates, that's good. It still means though 99.3% of those folks don't actually click on the ad, but you get volume, you get brand presence, and you really follow those folks around to keep top of mind with them. The postcard retargeting is just a different animal, right? It's a direct touch right to their homes. The return to site percentage on those are around 10 to 25%, so it's significantly higher, almost 18 to 20x more than digital, but it's a single touch that goes to the home, right? They keep it and they engage with it. Meanwhile, you still have that digital thing that's going around and following them around. So really it's the combination of both channels that we would recommend.
Yeah, and if I could add just really quickly, ROI.
Right.
You can measure both. All the tools out there today give you great analytics and can tell you which is performing the best. And the ROI on retargeting still is going to beat the pants off of any raw advertising.
That's right. That is true. That is true.
You know,
and beat the pants off is a technical marketing term that they teach in the MBA class.
And then we've got one other one here. What are the best offline marketing tools that you find that drive the most site traffic?
Best offline. Phil, go ahead.
You know, that's a really good question. I don't mean to be evasive, but it really depends on who you're trying to target. You know, where do your customers live? Are they newspaper readers? You know, the newspapers, you know, are they billboard readers?
Right.
You know, do you have a physical presence? You know, that could be, you know, something. And then the other thing is, you know, a lot of folks that I've encountered over the years have had a presence like at farmers markets, or they do some physical along with it, and then they use those opportunities as a distribution channel, whether it's for marketing materials or taste testing, things like that.
That's a great idea. You know, taste testing is a great idea, and sampling.
Food, e-commerce and food has come up obviously in the last year as well. So that's a great avenue.
Yeah, so, and I think that I would of course add something like direct mail would work too. Direct mail though is different because you've really got to target folks who you think are going to be ready for your site. If you have a more global type of business, there's a service called Every Door Direct Mail. It's extremely affordable. And what you do is you take a bunch of cards and you drop ship it to a post office, and the post office just saturates a neighborhood. Very inexpensive to do that. The other thing you can do as well is, you know, to talk about getting more online presence or bringing folks back. To Phil's point about building an email list, technology exists now, so you can take an email list and do what we call a reverse append and turn it into a mailing list, so you can mail to those folks too. I think billboards are great. Don't underestimate the billboard, especially in a neighborhood, right? Especially where you have the billboard message is very clear. Come to x.com, right? I remember seeing one called Mozzie.com, and it was very simple. It said heating, AC, solar, right? I never heard of these guys, but suddenly I did, and suddenly I'm like, hey, if I'm in the market for solar, I see them, and I'll go to their website, right? So it's a website traffic driver.
Can I give one short story? And it's funny that this question came up because Chris, I mentioned at the beginning of this that we had used Modern Postcard in a former life, like 30 years ago. And what we did was we created take ones with Modern Postcards postcards. And our business was we sold sun hats via direct mail. So we took those of you that are in Southern California know the wide brim lifeguard hats. We imported them from Mexico. We cleaned them up, put a nice trim on them and a leather string, and sold them as the ultimate garden hat for $20 a piece. And we got a lot of traction with dermatology offices. So we created Modern postcards with an offer on them that basically was an 800 number. We didn't have a website then. We're talking 1992. And you know, we sent like 500 cards to hundreds of dermatology offices around the country,
Brilliant.
And our address was on there too. And we got anywhere from 20 to 40 checks a day in the mail and about the same number of phone calls a day. So talk about offline that worked. I mean, it was a take one and people brought it home. They're like, yeah, I need a sun hat. I just got this thing frozen off my face at my dermatologist and I need a good hat.
Right, that's brilliant. That's really good marketing. Good job on you, Phil. That's
it was
great.
fun too.
Well, thank you guys. I think we're about to wrap up here. As you said, Chris, take 25. Great conversation as always. Really well done. Phil, thank you so much for joining us, coming off the big event last week. We look forward to seeing what the e-commerce events has in store for 2021 and continuing to work with you guys. We're really looking forward to that. For our attendees, your next opportunity to attend a live online Take 20 episode is Wednesday, October 21st, when we have the second of this three-part series on the e-commerce marketplace. Please visit thepdmi.com /take-20 to check out the upcoming schedule and register to attend today. Again, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Phil, and thank you for checking out this episode of the PDMI's Take 20. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the work week. Stay safe and stay well.
Great. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.